plant-based milk drinkers out there. I'm here to talk about my favorite movies of all time. This is going to be what I think the best things are. What is this doing? This isn't going to be one of those lists where I'm like, oh, these are the best movies ever made and everybody should watch it. This is my list. And if you don't agree with it, who cares? Make up your own list. This is going to be like a top 10 list. There's no real order to these. I just kind of like wrote these down as I was going. Everybody knows that definitely my top pick for favorite movie of all time. I've talked about that endlessly on my channel for a really long time. I think comedy stuff is just where my soul resides. I think I loved watching comedy movies when I was a kid, and Hot Fuzz is the pinnacle of that. There's plenty of other movies that you could say are the best comedies of all time. A lot of people would pick Shaun of the Dead over Hot Fuzz, but I wouldn't, and I am the one talking. I have the microphone. I'm the one that is allowed to talk right now, so shut up and listen. Why am I so blue? Go away. I just think Hot Fuzz has so many things going for it. I think there's not a single wasted piece of dialogue in that movie because every single thing they talk about comes back later. I still watch Hot Fuzz now after seeing it probably about 15 times, and I still catch stuff that I didn't see before, like a poster in a window or something. If you've grown up watching British actors, it feels like a who's who of British actors in that movie. But there's also a bunch of twists and turns in the movie that I didn't expect going into it the first time, and I think that that's really fun the first time you watch it. And it still kind of like catches me off guard when I'm watching it. So I just think that movie's amazing. That's my ultimate comfort movie if I need to pick me up.
Got a mustache. I know.
Second on my list.
The world is changed, and some things that should not have been forgotten were lost.
Is Lord of the Rings, but The Fellowship. Now, I could put every single one of the Lord of the Rings movies on this. I think they're all 10 out of 10 movies. I'm a sucker for the first part of things, especially when it comes to fantasy. I think Lord of the Rings is the greatest fantasy ever written, even though I've never read it. I think the movies are incredible. They came at me at a time in my life when I was really young and I just loved it. I had never been exposed to a world like that before. If you're somebody who loves video games, it's kind of hard not to love Lord of the Rings. They're so intrinsically connected to one another. And as a kid who loved like Final Fantasy games and just loved fantasy worlds in general, Lord of the Rings happening, I was like, oh man, this is exactly what I want. I want to run around in the fields with a bow and arrow and a sword. I talked about reading Stormlight Archive recently, and the first book was my favorite because I just love getting to learn the world. There's something cozy about that to me. Because the second movie and the third movie, everybody's just on the go non-stop all the time. And I love seeing the Fellowship get together. I love starting in the Shire. We're getting to see Rivendell for the first time is cool. You don't really get to see that in the other movies. And it also has the Balrog, which is like one of the cooler things in it. It has a really emotional arc with Gandalf. For Two Towers, I watched that and the start of it is cool, but there's some parts in the middle of that where there's a bit of a lull and my brain kind of switches off. Again, 10 out of 10 movie. The Return of the King as well, there's some parts in it where I'm not locked in. But Fellowship, I feel like I'm locked in for the entire thing, the entire time, and I love it.
Sauron needs only this ring to cover all the lands of darkness.
This is a movie that's probably going to surprise a lot of people because I don't think I talked about this ever before, but
like a Jackson Pollock or Ernest Hemingway, you read about those guys. You never read about who won or lost, just they got into a brawl.
I adore the movie Dazed and Confused. Any of you who've watched it are probably now, your neurons are firing. Dazed and Confused mentioned! Whoa!
All right.
You know what? Let's talk like a pretentious movie YouTuber or TikToker. I think Dazed and Confused, yeah, it's the best script put to film. I got introduced to that movie by my brother, and he always had that sort of like rocker, kind of hippie, not really hippie vibe. And I don't really romanticize like the 60s or the 70s like some people would. I love the way the characters act. I love the way they talk. I love the types of slang they use. I love just the whole atmosphere of that movie. And I think it's one of the best soundtracks that I've ever heard in a movie. It's all like banger after banger after banger. ZZ Top, you got fucking Lowrider in there. You got some like Ozzy Osbourne, Black Sabbath. You got, are Black Sabbath in it? It's just an incredible soundtrack. And as someone who's like a metalhead rocker kind of person, I always throw on that soundtrack whenever I'm just like, what do I want to listen to? I want to listen to that. Like, it's been a workout soundtrack for me as well. I think it's just great. I think everybody should watch Dazed and Confused. You might not get it, but for the people who do get it, you understand why I put it into that list. The whole movie takes place over one night. It's like one day and one night, and then that's it. It's just so good. Go watch it.
Oh, that's it. I fucking saw that, you little sack of shit. You two are fucking dead. You hear me? You're fucking dead.
I was kind of struggling to put this one in because I was like, do I consider this like one of my favorite of all time? I think I do.
What happened to you, Billy? Strange, Major.
I think I'm gonna put Predator into this list. Again, I just love science fiction. I love horror. And I think Predator is one of those movies that's, it's just perfect. There's not a thing wrong with that movie. Seeing like the big meathead guys go up and, Dylan, you son of a bitch. And I'm a goddamn sexual Tyrannosaurus. And Jesse Ventura fucking chewing tobacco. It's just so like, it's so cool. I would love to know what it was like to watch that movie as it came out. Like, did people know that that was the vibe? Or did people go like Metal Gear Solid 2? Did you go in thinking it was one thing and then you were shocked by something else? Like, as a kid watching that movie, how are you not gonna like it? As a kid who has my brain, the Predator looked cool. I was so excited to see the sequel after I watched the first one. And I love that movie a lot as well. It's one of those movies that, yeah, I'm changed. Also, flawless pacing. I'm starting to realize like a trend with myself that there's a big thing with pacing. And following up with Predator.
Since the beginning of time, man has searched the earth for evidence of its past.
Jurassic Park. Again, another perfect movie. There's nothing wrong with that movie. I can't fault it for anything. I read the book last year, and as I was reading it, I was like, oh, this is way different than the movie. And now I can't remember a single thing that happened in the book. The movie is just better than the book. And there's very few things that you can say that about. I think the book is very dry. A reason that I have Jurassic Park on the list is because it's the first movie I remember seeing in the cinema. One would argue I shouldn't have been going to see Jurassic Park as a fucking child, as a baby. When did Jurassic Park come out? 1993. But I think I saw it after, because I was 3 years old. I don't think I was 3 when I saw it, because I remember going to see this movie in the cinema. I remember where the cinema was. The cinema's now, it was knocked down and closed and everything, and there's apartments there now. Fucking society. So it was probably re-released and like put out in cinema again because there was nothing else happening back then. I just loved it. I thought it was so cool. It scared the shit out of me as a kid. It's another one of those movies where it's like, if somebody hasn't seen Jurassic Park and you get to be the one to show it to them, it's the same with Lord of the Rings. It's like, we're in for a special time. We're gonna have a bond now. I'm about to give you a core memory. Like, every kid loves dinosaurs. A lot of adults love dinosaurs. I still love dinosaurs. So how are you not gonna love Jurassic Park? It's amazing. I think a lot of people don't realize how much I love horror things. Here's the thing. You've probably heard people say this before, but horror and comedy are the same thing. They're a product of their time. The stuff that's scary in a horror movie is usually what's scary then. And the stuff that's funny in a comedy movie is usually a product of its time as well. Like 90s comedy movies, a lot of them didn't age very well. It's a lot of really cringe humor these days. Comedy is you build up a joke, you release the joke. The horror is like you build up a scare, you release the scare. It's one of those things that I love the vibe of a horror thing. I just love sitting in that atmosphere. So on my list of best horrors,
I feel it breathing on me.
one of them is Paranormal Activity. Now put your pitchforks away. There's a plethora of horror movies out there, and a lot of people are probably going to be like,
Paranormal Activity, really? That's so cringe.
Let's go back to when Paranormal Activity came out. I didn't really know what the movie was about. I knew it was a new horror movie. I remember there was a weird release for Paranormal Activity because it leaked. It was at a film festival. There was a whole stuff about Spielberg changed the ending. He talked to Oren Peli about it and he wanted to change the ending for it. There's like 3 different endings to the movie depending on what version you saw, and it was like a word of mouth thing. I saw it when I was in college in 2008. And as the movie was playing, it scared the shit out of me. It's just a great movie. I don't care what anybody says. It hit me in such a way that it was all the stuff that scared me from when I was a kid. When I was young, I slept in a bunk bed, like really close to the ceiling, and I could hear scratching on the ceiling. It was just mice. But I didn't know that when I was a kid. I remember like lying down on my pillow being like, is there somebody in the room? And I could hear like my heartbeat in my ears in the pillow. A lot of the stuff that was in the movie was hitting like this trauma center in the middle of my heart. And I'd never had a horror movie affect me that way before. And I'm glad it did. One thing that I hate about horror movies is that people will go see a horror movie. It happened with Long Legs recently where people were like, scariest movie ever. Pfft, I thought it was cringe. I was rolling my eyes and laughing at it in the movie. It's like, okay, cool, good for you. You're different than the rest of us. You're better than us. You got us. The rest of us who thought it was cool and creepy, we're just stupid. Yeah, good for you. Horror movies are one of those things that you need to like go in and be like, I want to be scared. A lot of people go into horror movies thinking you're gonna have to try really hard to get through me. And that's not fun. That's boring. You're fucking boring. And you'll see it in a lot of stuff that I do. Like whenever I do a horror thing on my main channel and it's like, oh, Sean's not on camera. What's gonna happen? Oh, he's possessed in the corner. That found footage, glitchy camera kind of stuff is very heavily rooted in Blair Witch Project and Paranormal Activity 1. That's my shit. That's my jam. I love that so much. Exorcist is also on my top 10 list because, again, I have a video on my main channel talking about it where I thought my sister was possessed because she talked about using a Ouija board and she got a VHS. I was 10 years old. She got this movie and she was like, I've heard it's the scariest thing ever. And she was trying to be like, you should watch it to like scare her younger brother. And then I watched it. Halfway through the movie, I had to turn it off because it was legitimately traumatizing. I don't know if kids have that anymore. I don't know if the internet has kind of like ruined people where you don't get those experiences anymore. Everything's ruined for everybody. I'm gonna be an old man yelling at cloud right now, but I think everybody knows everything about everything as soon as it's out anymore. So I don't know if you can really get those experiences anymore of like getting the VHS of something like a Blair Witch Project and seeing that for the first time and having everybody think it's real. When I watched that movie, it almost felt like it was taken off the shelves. Shit like that doesn't really happen anymore, where you get something that's going around and it's almost like a cult thing and then this tape ends up like watching The Ring and I'm like, oh god, do I have 7 days to live after watching this? But when I watched it, I was so scared. And that night I thought my sister was possessed and I said Hail Marys in my bunk bed as a 10-year-old. If a movie does that to you, it's a very formative movie. And even now when I watch The Exorcist, I can still like vividly remember where I was watching it, where the TV was, me kind of like kneeling at the edge of the bed watching it with my elbows on the bed like, oh wow, this is scary. It's just a really fucked up movie if you watch it. Maybe not so much anymore. We've had a lot of movies that are kind of like outdoing it in terms of what's in it, but it's just great. Exorcist 1, amazing movie.
The power of Christ compels you!
You know this one girl with hair like this?
Yes, that's Ramona Flowers.
Hey.
She's a little hardcore.
What?
Scott, I forbid you from hitting on Ramona.
Hey, what's up? Am I dreaming?
I also have Scott Pilgrim on this list. I know I have 2 Edgar Wright movies, Hot Fuzz and Scott Pilgrim. Scott Pilgrim is just, it's lodged in here. There's jokes in it and references in it that I think are absolutely timeless. They're never gonna be bad. Like that clip where it's like, is Scott home? And he like closes the door and Scott runs past the door and then jumps out the window behind him and he's like,
He just left.
Really?
Yeah.
Flawless.
That's the fucking best joke ever. There are certain jokes that I still say to this day. If I have to go pee, I'm like, I have to pee. I don't know, man. The actors that are in it are all great. It's perfectly paced. You know how something has a direct line to your funny bone? That's Scott Pilgrim and Hot Fuzz. That's exactly my type of comedy.
Prepare to feel the wrath of the League of Evil Exes.
This is happening, right?
Shifting gears a little bit, The Truman Show is on my list.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
I was trying to think of Jim Carrey movies that would be on this list. Like, I love Liar Liar. I love Me, Myself, and Irene. I love the second Ace Ventura movie. That was one of those movies that I would watch and repeat when I was a kid. I would just play it, rewind the tape, and play it again. I know you have to rewind things. Oh, God. Me and Evelyn still make jokes about that movie all the time. I was thinking about Jim Carrey movies, and I'm like, Jim Carrey was my favorite actor, my favorite comedic actor when I was young. But I was trying to think of movies that should be on this list that have him, and I think Truman Show is actually my favorite Jim Carrey movie. I don't know, it's also just so intrinsic to my life now that, like, I'm talking to a camera right now. People watch me sort of live my life. You can go back through my channel and watch like 11, 12 years of my life, watch me grow. Not being on camera 24/7 and obviously not sharing everything, but you know what I mean. And I think it's just a great movie. It's another one of those movies that when you go back and watch it again, you catch all these references to things that you didn't realize were in it, because everybody's in on the fact that it's a TV show of Truman and his life on Zoom calls or something, because I'm always talking to people who are in different time zones. I always say good afternoon, good evening, and good night. As someone who has ADHD, maybe autism, and you just want to watch stuff that you know you like, The Truman Show is one of those movies for me.
I like your pen. I was wondering that myself.
The Truman Show. Watch what happens.
And last on my list of top 10 is another horror movie that I probably should have talked about in the horror section. It's The Shining.
Come and play with us.
Because that movie fucking rules. I don't even really need to say why The Shining is on this list. I think it's pretty fucking obvious why The Shining would make a top 10 list or a top list of best movies of all time anyway, but it's just fucking phenomenal. Another movie where I watched the movie when I was younger, loved it, and then read the book when I was in college and didn't really like it. I don't really like the book of The Shining. I think I like what Stanley Kubrick did with the movie better than what the book did. I also like the ending of it better. I don't know, Shining is just a different type of horror. And maybe that's why I like horror so much, because a comedy is just like, sure, jokes are different from everybody, but they all kind of feel the same after a while. Horror is like, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid of people following you like It Follows? Are you afraid of a parent abusing you like The Shining? Are you afraid of monsters like Alien or Predator? Like, it depends on what is scary to you. But Shining is just so well made. The actors do an incredible job. R.I.P. Shelley Duvall, who actually passed away not that long ago as of this video. And I'm glad that the viral video going around of her kind of like correcting everybody, because everyone was like, she was so traumatized, Stanley Kubrick was awful to her. I think she corrected it, because everyone used to say like he was horrible to her and he fucked her up and she didn't want to act anymore. She was like, no, I enjoyed making that movie.
I wouldn't trade the experience for anything. Why? Because of Stanley. And it was a fascinating learning experience. It was such intense work that I think it makes you smarter, but I wouldn't want to go through it again.
She's just a really good actress, or was. But yeah, I like that movie. I'm a big fan of things that have, again, if you know me at all, or you've followed my career, or the things I do outside of the videos, like ego content, you will understand that I like when something has stuff set up early that has a big payoff later. Laying seeds everywhere. And I think Shining is really good at that as well.
Here's Johnny. I'm coming down.
And I had a really hard time, I guess this is the honorable mentions part of the list, not replacing The Shining with 2001: A Space Odyssey. Edgar Wright's the only person I've had on this twice, and I really thought I was going to have Stanley Kubrick on it as well. I'm usually a person that's like, I have a favorite director, but I never have a favorite director where I love absolutely everything they've done. I do like Full Metal Jacket, I do like 2001: A Space Odyssey, I do like Shining, but I don't like everything Kubrick has done. I love Shaun of the Dead, Scott Pilgrim, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End, but I don't like Last Night in Soho. So I'm not really like, whatever the director does, I'll watch all of it. But 2001: A Space Odyssey, I think, is the best sci-fi movie ever made. It like predates the moon landing. You can watch that movie now, like right now. If you've never seen it, go watch it now. And you will be shocked of the year that movie came out in, because of the way the sets and the effects and everything. Like, it just looks like it could come out today. Some of the sound design is a bit dated. You can kind of hear it in like the ADR dialogue, but the shots, way ahead of their time. If I had a top 11, 2001 would be in there. But because I mentioned Alex Garland as well, I also love the movie Annihilation. And it's one of those movies where I'm like, it's not like an amazing movie that everybody has to watch, but the bear scene, if you've seen it and you know what I'm talking about, fucking incredible. But I also think the ending to it, which was not everyone's cup of tea, totally understandable, but for me, it hit all the notes of things that I love. I think the soundtrack mixed with the visuals of the ending of that movie are probably the most perfect a movie has ever done it. I listen to that soundtrack religiously all the time because I have a very powerful, very cool cinema room in my house. I've wanted to show it off in a video because it's such a cool thing that I've been able to do, but I don't want to have it be like me showing off like rich person things. I don't know, is that something people would be interested in? I'm kind of cognizant of not trying to like flaunt stuff in people's face like that and kind of like keeping things for me. I feel a huge amount of gratitude and love for the job that I do, that it allowed me to be able to do that. But getting off track, other honorable mentions on my list, I mentioned Alien earlier. That was really close to butting Predator out of the list. I think those ones are kind of tied for me. I just saw Alien Romulus actually as of this video coming out. I thought it was great. I thought it was the best Alien movie since the second one. Other honorable mentions, Arrival is one. I even have a tattoo from Arrival on my arm. The logogram, the language that the aliens speak in it. This means like walk or journey, and the symbology of it for me was like, it's a circle of life, but it's not complete because we all die, so you're not infinite. If you go this way and think about the journey this way, it's like, ooh, rough beginnings, but then stuff gets easier as you're an adult. Or maybe you had a great childhood and stuff got harder as you're an adult. I don't know, but I love that movie. Again, a very different type of like alien invasion movie, and I'm a sucker for those. It also started my love for like Denis Villeneuve is one of my favorite directors now, and the way he directed Dune and Blade Runner 2049, like his aesthetic and the sound design and everything is just, oh, it hits that sweet spot for me. Another one on my list is The Matrix, because why not? Matrix fucking rules. And I also found it funny when the movie came out, everyone was like, it's the most difficult to understand movie of all time. What is The Matrix? Nobody knows. And everyone was so confused. I was like, isn't it really obvious? The Matrix is kind of like a video game. And now if you watch it, it's like fucking obvious what it is. And I just think it's a great movie. It's a fucking great action movie. It's so video gamey the way it is, just slow motion and everything, and the gunfights, and it's so cool. There's probably like 50 other honorable mentions I could put on this, but another one that kind of like came to my brain as I was making the list was Pulp Fiction, because that used to be my favorite movie of all time. I thought it was cool to say Pulp Fiction was your favorite movie, but I do really like it. But anyway, that's my list. I would love to know everybody else's lists. Put a top 10 in the comments if you want to. If you don't have a top 10, top 3, top 5, whatever. Like genuinely, I'm not just saying that. Whenever I make a list like this and think about it, I think I'm missing ones that somebody would probably say something and I'm like, oh, I actually fucking love that movie, but my ADHD brain just kicked it out of my head for some reason. I just didn't think about it. I'm also going to do a video about my favorite games, so stay tuned for that one. A lot of them people know already, but I think there's going to be some surprises in there for you jackheads out there, for people who like to jack off. Anyway, thank you for watching. Bye.